It's 10 a.m. and I'd like to call to order the teleconference meeting of the Board of Directors of Friday, July 23rd, 2021. Please note this meeting is being recorded. Madam Secretary, would you please call the roll?
Thank you, and good morning, everyone. Starting with Director Arnold. Absent. Director Conroy.
Present.
Director Fredericks.
Yes.
Director Garbarino.
Present.
Director Grosval.
Here.
Director Hernandez.
Here.
Director Hill.
Here.
Director Maston.
Present.
Director Melgar. Director Melgar. Absent. Director Rabbit.
Here.
Thank you. Director Rodoni.
Here.
Director Snyder.
Present.
Director Stephanie.
Present.
Second Vice President Cochran.
Here.
First Vice President Theriault.
Here.
And President Barr.
Present.
Thank you. You have a quorum. I'm going to loop back. Is Director Melgar, are you on the line?
I'm here. I'm so sorry. My mute button wasn't working.
No problem. I saw your line pop up, so I just wanted to confirm. Thanks for that.
Thank you.
Let me confirm. Staff, Dennis, are you on the line?
I am. Good morning.
Joe Wire is not on the line. Eva Barr-Furbish?
Yes, I'm here.
Perfect. Kim Monnolius?
Good morning.
You. Steve Miller?
Here. Good morning.
Thank you. Mona Babauta? Is not on the line. Jim Swindler?
Present.
Thank you. Kelly Hopper?
Present.
Thank you. And that confirms the staff on the line.
Thank you very much. Welcome and thank you to everyone for joining us this morning. Again, we appreciate your continued patience as we continue to conduct our business in this manner. I'll be asking if members have any comments or questions on the agenda items. And if there are questions, the Secretary or I will call on you accordingly. And I think you've noticed that Amrit can tell who talks. She's got buttons that keep track of all of us. So after the discussion, we'll be taking the appropriate roll call. If you're not speaking, please mute your phones to minimize the noise on today's call. And remember to unmute when you're speaking. Each page of the packet is put on the bottom right-hand corner to make it easier to follow along. Second Vice President Cochran, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance since Director Arnold is not on the line today?
Yes, I'd be honored to. Please join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty, and justice for all.
Liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Second Vice President.
Yes, you're welcome.
Secretary, would you move us, please?
Thanks. We're going to move into public comment for any and all comments on today's agenda. If you wish to speak on an item, you don't have to wait for that item. Please speak to it now. Justine Bach is assisting today to moderate that public line of ours. And Justine, go ahead and introduce our first speaker. I understand we have about 5.
Good morning. Our first speaker is Manuel Gamboa. Mr. Gamboa.
Good morning.
Good morning, Manuel.
Hello. My son Kyle jumped off the Golden Gate Bridge in 2013 in September. And since then, his mother and I have attended your guys' meeting to ask for you guys to put some sort of barrier on that bridge, whether it's an accident or people going there to the bridge that wants to jump and take their life, whether they know about it, like some sort of mental issue or depression. Well, since then, you guys are constructing that net, and I just want to call or actually be a part of this meeting to commend you guys on that and the company that is building that, the Shimmick, I believe it is. Just success in completing this. And, I know with the board, they have a lot of other stuff, a lot of other duties that they have to take care of. You guys got to take care of besides the bridge. And so with that, I just want to throw my shout out to you guys about this net that you guys are building. And with that, I'll just leave it there and wish everybody a happy weekend. And hope to see you guys all in person. Thank you.
Thank you, and same to you, Mr. Gamboa. We appreciate the fact that you've included us in your journey since September of 2013, and always keep us focused on the suicide deterrent system. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Our next speaker is Dave Rohde. Mr. Rohde.
President Parr, board members, managers, and staff, good morning. My name is Dave Rohde. I'm with the Climate Reality Project. As most of you know, I've been speaking regularly at Golden Gate Bridge board meetings for the past 2 years. In one of my earlier speeches, I announced, I'm a project manager with the Climate Reality Project, and you are my project. I thought that today might be a good time to explain why. Like all of you, I have a long history with the Golden Gate Bridge. In 1984, I produced a race from Fisherman's Wharf to Sausalito across the Golden Gate Bridge. It was the first major event I'd ever produced, and it led to the creation of an event production company that my wife and I managed for 34 years. Of the 690 events we produced, 72 of them featured the Golden Gate Bridge as their centerpiece. Of the hundreds of government agencies we worked with throughout Northern California, none matched the level of professionalism and support we experienced with Golden Gate Bridge management and security staff. My experience over the last 2 years while addressing the climate crisis has been equally positive. Every single person I've met is associated with the Golden Gate Bridge District shows great pride in their work, presenting themselves with personal and professional courtesy that is a cut above any other public agency. In the last 2 years, witnessing the exceptional management skills of Dennis Mulligan and seeing the integrity and commitment of this board of directors, I'm even more convinced that this is more than a job to all of you. I've seen care and concern for Golden Gate Bridge workers and their families. I've seen solidarity with the community in addressing the COVID-19 pandemic and in response to the heartbreaking suicides at the bridge. And of course, I've seen the Golden Gate Bridge District acknowledge the role it must play in addressing climate change. I know that all of this is centered around the beautiful and ingenious structure that is so iconic to everyone's lives in the San Francisco Bay Area. It is a bridge that unites. It's a bridge that symbolizes the can-do attitude of this community and the commitment to surpass expectations and look glorious in the process. We have much work to do. We need to find ways to build a fleet of all-electric buses even faster than the state of California calls for. We need to examine Golden Gate Bridge District investments, pulling support from fossil fuel industries whenever possible. We need to embrace the innovations in planning that will allow you to move forward to an all-electric ferry fleet. And we can even find ways to contribute to the clean energy grid. With extreme weather events and climate catastrophe stories haunting the news every day, I don't need to remind you that the climate crisis is only getting worse. But it's also for that reason that I will not stop holding your feet to the fire. You are in a position to not only help mitigate climate change, you can set an example for other Bay Area leaders and for the rest of the country. The Golden Gate Bridge is more than a magnificent structure. It represents a belief system. And it's because of the level of commitment I've seen it inspire in all of you that I believe in this mission. I believe in all of you. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you, Mr. Rohde, for keeping that in the front of our minds. We appreciate that.
Our next speaker is David Piltel. Mr. Piltel?
Can you hear me okay?
We can.
We can.
Great. Okay, David Piltel. So a couple of quick items. On the general manager's report, is there an estimate of the bus ridership on the July 4th weekend where free rides were provided? There was reference to the ferry ridership, but I'm kind of wondering what the bus ridership was. And I suspect whatever the ridership was, that the revenue foregone was not very much. And I'm thinking, consistent with the general manager's previous suggestions, not to do an overall fare change, but to do targeted promotions and that sort of thing to lure riders back. Maybe it's worth trying that again to have free bus service over the Labor Day weekend, that 3-day weekend upcoming at the beginning of September. Just a thought. The second thing on the engineering report, there are several projects related to the Novato bus facility site remediation work. I think that I understand that that work is now pretty much complete. I'm wondering if that's in fact true, and have the buses been moved back there, even though I suspect that Division 2 is not currently in service for operations, but I just wanted to confirm that buses have been moved back there and they're just sort of parked at Novato for the moment. And just finally, overall, I don't see anything substantive to edit on the minutes, so great work on a lot of minutes. That appears to be pretty well caught up. Thanks to all the district officers, managers, supervisors, and employees for all the continuing good work. And I may not stay with you for the whole meeting today because there's a very tense hearing at the San Francisco Board of Supervisors about muni service restoration, flowing in part from Supervisor Melgar's resolution back in February. They're now discussing a different resolution about muni service restoration. So I wanted to jump back to that, but I wanted to thank you all very much. Until next month. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Pilpel. We'll let Mr. Mulligan address your questions at the end of the public comment.
Thanks.
Our next speaker is Shane Weinstein. Shane, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Shane?
Good morning, Chair Parr, her fellow directors. My name is Shane Weinstein, president of ATU. I represent the heroes, bus operators at Golden Gate. I'm speaking today because just last week, the MTC Program and Allocations Committee awarded Golden Gate with $58 million in a first tranche with access to roughly $35 million more by the year's end. These types of funds can cover well into 2023. The funds are going to be voted on by the full board on the 28th, and we expect again that it's going to pass. So as many of you may know, almost every worker at the Golden Gate Bridge District is in contract negotiations currently. Some of the employees have gone without a raise for multiple years. I want to resuscitate a discussion that happened between multiple directors last month's Finance and Auditing Committee and last month's Board of Directors meeting about a well-deserved raise for these heroes when the money came available. Well, here we are, and here's our opportunity. The question was raised as to where in the budget was the money for the workers, and the answer was simple. We don't budget for raises until we have the funds. So let's again discuss where this well-deserved raise that some have been waiting years for. These workers were unable to work from home in safety. They were forced to continue to work through this time of deadly variants. They're still at risk. Their families are still at risk. Their fellow employees are still at risk. The money is coming. Raises weren't budgeted for just in last month's meeting. Where now is that much needed money going to come for raises for these heroes? Remember that we're having these meetings currently right now on the phone because it's still dangerous. So let's reward those that are coming to work right now during this deadly time. Thank you.
Thank you, Shane, for your comments and for your leadership.
Our next speaker is Marina Secatano. Marina?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Great. This is Marina Secatano, Chair of the Labor Coalition. Good morning, Chair Parr and directors. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. We have been in bargaining for over a year and a half to try to reach agreement. As you know, the CalPERS change in medical benefits was very important to the district. We struggled through those negotiations during a difficult time. Had it been another time, we would have been compensated for the district savings, which are going to be significant, millions of dollars over the coming years. But the district wanted that agreement to be able to start that new program by October. So the coalition worked very hard to work with its fellow unions to adopt and ratify the coalition CalPERS MOU. It was not easy. It was not 100% solid, but we did that. We did that on the good faith that the district would then come forward with our long-deserved raises. And, you know, we have gone 2 years without wage increases, while even during the pandemic, the cost of living has gone up, as everybody knows. So the district's been compensated for their lost revenue, starting with the CARES Act and most recently with the American Rescue Act. You know, labor worked very hard to make sure that the district got that, as well as other transportation agencies. And I'm thrilled that you have been able to, you know, do some amazing things going forward to keep your budget intact. But now is the time for the district to act in good faith and come forward with fair wage increases. You know, the members expect it and deserve it. And I can't stress enough for the good of our folks that it has to be done. And we did mention we can't go along with triggers. And, you know, so I'm hopeful that you will take that off the table and come forward with, you know, fair and just wage increases. Thank you.
Thank you, Marina. Thank you for the healthcare changes and also for your leadership.
You're welcome.
President Parr, I hope you'll indulge me in repolling the room just for a minute. I believe we've got some new people who may have joined after we started. Is that okay with you?
Of course.
Thank you.
You have been muted. Mute off.
President Parr, we have no more speakers this morning.
All right. Thank you for your help, Justine.
Certainly.
Thank you, everyone, for your comments. Mr. Mulligan, would you like to offer any response to the comments?
Sure. First, thank Manuel Gamboa for his commitment to the Suicide Bureau and the Golden Gate Bridge. And Ms. Bauer can talk briefly about that when it comes time for the engineer's report. I appreciate Mr. Rohde's thoughtful comments. The board adopted a climate emergency declaration almost 2 years ago, and we are very cognizant of that and committed to implementing it. With respect to July 4th free transit, on the bus side, on Saturday, July 3rd, and on Monday, July 5th, there was a nominal change in ridership. However, on Sunday, July 4th, we saw about a 47% increase over the prior Sunday. So we did see people take advantage of the free ridership on the bus side. On the ferry side, I highlighted that in my written report because we had not operated weekend ferry service since the start of the pandemic, and that was kind of a pilot. So we look forward to continuing with marketing efforts to welcome back our customers. Our next focus on something free will probably be when there's a more broad reopening of downtown San Francisco. We'll be focused on weekdays because that's where we've seen the most significant decline in travel in the corridor, that is people commuting into San Francisco for work. With respect to Ms. Secitano, we're very appreciative of her leadership and the other union coalition leaders in agreeing to transition to CalPERS medical plans. And they took a leap of faith in doing that, and we look forward to negotiating wages with them. However, we do not negotiate in public, so I won't get into any specifics, but we are committed to fulfilling our promise to them, was that we needed a little bit more time to get a picture of what our finances might look like, and then we would negotiate wages. And we are at that juncture. Mr. Shane Weinstein referred to an MTC action by their Program and Allocations Committee. That was not a unanimous vote, and it goes before the full commission on Wednesday, July 28th, and we're hopeful for a favorable vote. And it has about $57.6 million for the Bridge District, which will be enough money to get us through the current fiscal year and a little bit into next fiscal year. And so we're very, very appreciative to the wisdom of our congressional leaders and President Biden in providing that needed relief to transit. That concludes my responses to the speakers.
Thank you, Mr. Mulligan. And this concludes the public comments to the board. Madam Secretary, would you please continue to the next item?
Item number 5 is to approve the consent calendar, including approval of minutes from our June committee and board meetings, as well as the minutes of the special board meeting that was held on July 9th, as well as ratification of previous actions by the auditor controller. The consent calendar packet is actually pretty long, and it's from pages 5 to 53 in your packet.
Thank you very much. I assume that people have taken a look at that. Before we take our vote, are there any questions from board members on the consent calendar? Hearing none, Madam Secretary, would you please call on, may I please, let me start over. Madam Secretary is not in charge of the motion. Do I hear a motion on this item?
I'll move the consent calendar.
Thank you. I assume that you'll find a second in there, Amarette.
I sure will.
All right. Thank you very much. Would you please conduct a roll call now vote?
Sure. I mean, I can put myself down as a first and a second, but I don't think that's going to apply. Starting with Director Arnold on item 5. Absent. Director Conroy.
Aye.
Director Fredericks.
Yes.
Director Garbarino.
Yes.
Director Grosball.
Yes, and for the future, could we ask that maybe the consent calendar be by consensus without having to go through the entire vote of every member? I don't remember any instance where anybody's opposed it. You can address that later on, but thank you.
Sure.
Sure. Thank you for that comment, Dick.
I'll just add really quickly in the middle of my vote. I'll keep track of it. Thank you, Director Grosball. I've been told that on the ones we've tried to do a consensus vote on, is because we're doing them by audio, and if we were doing a visual call, they want a roll call vote to make sure that all the members are actually on there and say aye. Going back to the roll call, Director Hernandez.
Aye.
Thank you. Director Hill.
Yes.
Director Maston.
Aye.
Director Melgar.
Aye.
Director Rabbit.
Aye.
Director Rodoni.
Aye.
Director Snyder.
Aye.
Director Stephanie.
Aye.
Second Vice President Cochran.
Yes.
First Vice President Theriault.
Yes.
And President Barr.
Aye.
Thank you. That motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Would you please introduce the next item?
Item 6A is the report of the General Manager, and that staff report can be found on page 55 of the packet, and Dennis is here to present his report. Dennis, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Secretary, members of the board, members of the public. My written report is before you. I would like to highlight a few things. As we traverse the arc of the pandemic, June 15th marked the grand reopening of California and a significant easing of restrictions on physical distancing and mask requirements and capacity limits. Accompanying that, we've noticed an uptick in weekend travel in and around the bridge, and tourists are starting to come back, which is welcome. But that also introduces some traffic management challenges. So starting on Saturday, July 10th, we restarted closing Vista Point and the Welcome Center parking lots on Saturdays, Sundays, and major holidays, 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. So all vehicles except tour buses. This is essential to keep traffic flowing on the west side of San Francisco. Prior to the pandemic, we've been implementing such closures for many years. Vista Point is not ours. We have an encroachment permit from Caltrans that allows us to close their parking lot. But absent such closures, motorists queuing up for a very small number of parking spots backs up onto the bridge, takes a lane, and then typically takes a second lane as people try to cut in at the last minute, and it can back up traffic as far as SF State. And so to avoid that happening, we are closing Vista Point and the Welcome Center parking lots again on Saturdays, Sundays, and holidays, just for a period of 6 hours, and it seems to be working, and I just want to let you know that we're doing that. We ceased doing it during the pandemic to reduce expense, and also because it wasn't necessary. But we're excited to see people coming back and growth in tourism. Also, as was mentioned by one of the speakers, we offered free service on the weekend of July 4th, 3rd, 4th, and 5th. Most of our customers have not been on a bus or a boat in 16 months, and so we want to make it easy for them to take that first step across the threshold, get on a bus or boat, and make it free. We reinstated weekend ferry service. We had great ridership. Based on how many people were willing to ride it for free, the following weekend, we rolled out regular scheduled weekend ferry service again on July 10th. And ridership has been solid. We have more people riding our ferries on weekends than we do on weekdays, which indicates that there's still a trend where people are not going into San Francisco to work in office buildings, but they are willing to go to a ball game or to take their children to the Exploratorium or to get out and about. Starting with the Bay Bridge series on June 25th, the Giants expanded the capacity of the ballpark to 100%, so we also restarted our ballpark ferry service. And thus far, our most successful ferry boats, the only ones that have sold out, are the ones going to the ballpark. So we will continue to add back bus and ferry service incrementally in a measured way as we see the return of our customers traveling in the Golden Gate Corridor. But we're not going to run empty buses or boats. It's not cost effective, nor is it good for the environment. We are watching how the Delta variant is impacting various companies' reopening plans. Many companies are taking a pause and slightly delaying their plans. So we'll do another survey of our customers in the coming months to check again to see if what they were told previously still applies. With respect to revenues, we're still taking in less than we did pre-pandemic on tolls and on transit fares. The week of July 4th, revenues were down about $1.3 million. So we're pretty consistent between 1 to 1.3 million less each week than we were compared to similar weeks in 2019. But we are seeing slight modest increases, like I said previously, primarily in recreational and non-commute trips, but the business is welcome. One thing not in my report, I just want to highlight very briefly, was that the district is in negotiations with state parks to take over ferry service from San Francisco to Angel Island. Those conversations are going well. But it is with the state that we're having those negotiations, so they're not moving quite as quickly as we would like. But we are moving in the right direction, and I just want to let folks know that we look forward to taking over ferry service between San Francisco and Angel Island, and to bring people to the island to enjoy the wonderful opportunities to learn about the history of the island, how it affected the community, as well as the natural beauty. Similarly, we're in discussions to take over midday and weekend service between San Francisco and Tiburon. Those are also taking longer than we would like, but they are proceeding. And so I did want to mention both of those. Also, with the grand reopening of California on June 15th, we started accepting requests for special events. One of the speakers used to be one of the people that pull permits for special events. So we have various escape from Alcatraz walks and relays that will be occurring in the coming months, and those are detailed in my report. Finally, with respect to employee recognition, Maria Rodriguez works in our Human Resources Department. She's been with us 25 years. Some of you may have actually spoken with her on various topics, but we're very pleased that she works for us. She previously worked as a chauffeur, an accounts payable clerk, and a human resources assistant for other organizations before joining us on July 22nd, 1996. Also, we want to acknowledge 20 years of service to one of our ironwork pushers. Pushers determine the ironworker craft that refers to a foreperson, and that's Darren McVeigh. He joined us on July 9th, 2001, and he was promoted to a pusher ironworker in 2008, and we're very pleased for the proud service he provides to the Bridge District. Every month, we have a committee of employees that selects one of their own to be the Employee of the Month. And this month, the employee selected for this prestigious award is Charles Harris. He's an engineering contracts assistant in the district division. He was selected as the Employee of the Month based on his professionalism, dedication, resourcefulness, and initiative. He works on engineering projects, managing the document flow, purchase orders, instrumental role in transitioning to a new software tool to track DVE usage, and he's been a mentor to many new staff in the engineering department. He originally joined the district in March 14, 2002. He is a resident of Petaluma, where he lives with his spouse, Olga, and their children, Stacy, Katie, and Johnny. He enjoys music and plays in many bands. He's an electric bass guitarist, currently in a band called Grateful Tuna. So with that, hats off to Mr. Harris for being selected as the Employee of the Month for July 2021. And that concludes my report. I'm available to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Mulligan. Are there any questions related to the General Manager's report?
Yeah, this is Dick Groswell. I do have a comment and a question.
Go ahead, Dick.
You know, this is also for the board leadership. You know, I appreciate that the staff made the decision to give the free rides over the July 4th weekend, but it does seem like the board should have a discussion about marketing efforts. You know, I missed a couple meetings, but I don't recall we've had any discussion at a board level on whether we should be pushing more marketing efforts, whether that means other free rides, whether that means discounting fares on the ferry. Maybe we focused on during the week. I don't know what my position would be, but because I'd be curious what people say, and I know the staff has a view on it. But I was going to raise this issue, but by happenstance, the Chronicle has an article this morning about Muni offering free cable rides for a month, youth for free for a year, and those kind of things. I'm not pushing any of those things. I'm just throwing them out that I don't recall us having that kind of discussion as a board, and I'd be curious of other people's ideas. And we may decide to do nothing, but it does seem like, given how poor our ferry and transit service has been, and recognizing it's finally increasing, but I guess I would ask the board leadership to talk to the staff about putting it on the agenda for a board meeting in August or September. Thank you.
If I could respond, this is Dennis. We did do a survey of our customers, and we shared the results at the May Transportation Committee meeting with our marketing department. Most of our customers that ride our commute bus and ferry service have signed up for alerts. So if they ride, say, the Route 4 bus from Mill Valley to San Francisco, they sign up for Route 4 alerts. And then we push them a text or an email, whichever venue they prefer, when there's a bus running late on their route, just their route, or if there's a schedule change on their route. So we have contact info for most of them. We pushed out a survey to them to find out what their plans were to return to work. The bulk of our business is commuters. And that data is very helpful and it's very instructive for us as we plan adding service back. But the commute service is tied to reopening offices in downtown San Francisco. And so we had a lot of questions about that, as well as recreational travel. But right now, today, during the morning commute period from 5 a.m. to 9 a.m., bridge traffic is down almost 40%. So while bridge traffic over the course of a day is down 20%, people are not driving into San Francisco, nor are they riding a bus or a boat to go to work in the tall building in downtown San Francisco. Our busiest bus trip, single trip, crossing the bridge southbound in the morning commute has only 16 passengers on it. So the challenge we have is the business community reopening. And so the Bay Area Council, representing most of the big employers, along with MTC, are doing monthly polls of employers. MTC and the transit operators have put together a marketing campaign that MTC will fund to push outreach to employers. But until such time as buildings reopen, we could do all the ads we want or marketing campaigns. We won't see an uptick in travel because people are not going into San Francisco right now to go to work. Where we are seeing opportunities is for weekends and for recreational trips. And so we have taken steps to encourage that, to test that, and to add service. And we've added a little bit of commute service on the bus side, but at this juncture, very, very few people are going to the city. But we can do presentations at future meetings with respect to what the information is coming out of the employers in terms of what their plans are to reopen. What we heard from our customers when we did the survey was that 30% of them have not been told yet by their employer when they're going to reopen. The good news was, of the 70% that had heard information from their employers, the vast majority of them will be returning to the office between now and December. Now, this obviously is prior to the current uptick in COVID cases associated with the Delta variant. But right now, the challenge isn't getting people to get on a bus. We polled them about their safety and security concerns about bus and ferry, and less than 2% of our customers have any concern about the security or safety, in spite of COVID, on our bus and ferries. So that's a very positive trend. I think where the fear lies is in getting in an elevator and going up 20 stories. But until employers welcome back their employees in downtown San Francisco, our numbers will remain low. But we do have a marketing campaign that the Bay Area Transit Operators and MTC will be rolling out. And we have our own targeted marketing that we have planned to roll out in our service area when things reopen. If you do an ad campaign 6 weeks before people do something, they're likely not to remember it 6 weeks later. So we are poised to time that to when things happen. We prepared videos welcoming people back to bus and ferry. We have other opportunities. But our challenge right now is that our customers are relying upon their employers to welcome them back to work, and that is occurring very slowly. But we will gladly do additional presentations to the board or to the appropriate committee. Thus far, we've done those to the Transportation Committee. So hopefully that provides some insight into what we've done thus far and where we see things going forward. But we look forward, and we can do something next month if that's the board's pleasure.
I appreciate that, Dennis. And I know how much respect I have for you and the staff. My only comment is that it just seemed like we as a board have an obligation to have a discussion about these issues too, and at least review what your conclusions. And you're probably right, but it just seems like at some point the full board should have that discussion. And but I'll defer to the board leadership. I know they meet before these meetings. So thank you.
Thank you, Director Groswell, for that information. I had the same thoughts you did as you were speaking, and I made myself a note here that even if we have a presentation, maybe we need to encourage more discussion afterwards. I know that the staff has been working relentlessly on how we market ourselves to come back out. So maybe that just needs to be shared a little more transparently. I know it is shared at Transportation, and I do think, in fact, I know I was going to make a comment later on in the meeting that the Transportation Committee has had some important presentations made on ridership, that sort of thing, and they're online if you want to go on and look at them if you weren't able to be there. But we'll meet when we meet with our leadership group. We'll talk about that and see if we can't get something on the agenda for a little more discussion. You know, there's, as Dennis said, there's always a downside to advertising too far out. But I know that MTC has also come up with some important advertising. So maybe we just need to know a little bit more about that so that we're a little more comfortable that we're headed the right way and that we've had enough input as a board. So I appreciate that.
Thank you.
All right. Are there any other comments for the General Manager's report?
Yes, Madam President, Director Terry.
Yes, Mike.
A comment and then separately a request. The comment, I'd like to particularly join in the celebration of the 20-year service award to pusher iron worker Darren McVeigh. One of the ways I know I'm getting old is that well before Darren's 20 years with the district, I was his pusher in the private sector. Then separately, I'd like if General Manager Mulligan would respond to the correspondence from Mr. Johnson, the clerk of the Court of Appeals, with regard to service to Civic Center in San Francisco. I'd appreciate it.
Certainly. We received a letter on letterhead from the Court of Appeals advocating for the restoration of service. The court has reopened, and they're advocating that we bring back direct service to Civic Center. Right now, to go to the Civic Center, a passenger has to transfer at the toll plaza. At this juncture, there's not a lot of people going to the Civic Center. At this juncture, our biggest challenge is that most buildings are still closed in downtown San Francisco, or they have just skeleton folks attending. So we do not believe there's adequate ridership. We're not going to run a bus for 1 or 2 people. Bus ridership is way down, ferry ridership is down, and bridge traffic is down from 5 a.m. to 9 a.m. And so as a matter of policy, the board set certain ridership thresholds for buses. We are ignoring those during the pandemic and operating buses at much lower ridership levels. But that having been said, it's not prudent to run a bus for 1 or 2 people. And at this juncture, we're not aware of any demand for service along this corridor beyond that level.
All right, thank you. I appreciate that. I know we all got a copy of that letter in our emails late last night, I believe it was. It was a late-breaking letter. All right, thank you. Any other questions from board members or comments? All right, hearing none, thank you to the directors, and thank you, Mr. Mulligan, for your report. and for your answers. Madam Secretary, would you please introduce the next item?
Thank you. Item 6B is the report of the attorney, and that staff report can be found on page 65. And on the line, Attorney Kim Monnolius is here to present his report. Kim, go ahead.
Thanks, Amaret. Good morning, everyone. My report's before you. I'm happy to take any questions, and we will have I'll keep it short, closed session at the end of the meeting regarding the Hayes case, as indicated on the agenda. But I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much. Are there questions related to the attorney's report? Hearing none, Madam Secretary, would you please introduce the next item?
Item 6C is the report of the chief engineer, and that report can be found on page 67 of the board meeting packet. And Ava Bauer-Furbish is here to present her report. Ava, go ahead.
Thank you, Amaret. Madam President, members of the board, my written report is before you, and I would like to briefly address 3 projects. I would like to add to the response provided by the general manager regarding the Novato bus facility site remediation. This construction work was completed in May. So since then, bus division took over the facility. Then, with regard to the suicide, the current ongoing construction, the contractor continues work on the net support installation at the North Approach Viaduct. And in this month, in July, they were able to install 6 additional net supports on that structure. On the suspension bridge, the contractor has completed removal of all 8 existing site maintenance travelers. And this is important because this has opened those areas on the suspension bridge for the installation of the remaining net support. On the North Anchorage housing, instead of the horizontal net, the contract calls for the installation of a tall vertical steel railing barrier atop the existing concrete barrier. So to date, the contractor has completed installation of so-called steel dowels in the concrete barrier. These dowels will be used to attach the new steel railing posts to the concrete barrier. And lastly, the contractor is working on procuring the special equipment that will be used for the installation of the net. And lastly, I would like to just provide a brief update on where we are with the wind tunnel testing of measures that could potentially mitigate the sound generated by the new suspension bridge railing. The wind tunnel test consultant has completed the test and is now analyzing the results and is preparing a report that will provide basis for determining the most effective and most feasible noise mitigation measure. So with this, I'm available to answer questions that the board may have for me.
Thank you, Ms. Bauer-Furbish. Are there any questions related to the Chief Engineer's report?
This is Director Hill.
Okay, go ahead, Bert.
Just to thank Engineer Furbish for streamlining her report so that you can very easily get to the direct changes that are made to what is something like 60 pages with a table of contents. Thank you very much. It makes it much easier.
Thank you for that comment.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right. Thank you very much for that report, Ms. Bauer-Furbish. Madam Secretary, would you please continue with the agenda?
Thank you. Moving on to item 8, since there are no other reports under item 7. Item number 8A is the report of the Transportation Committee meeting of Thursday, July 22nd, 2021. And that summary of recommendations for this meeting, there's one item, can be found on page 105 of your packet.
All right, thank you. And as a reminder to everyone, the action items before us today and the next 2 reports were discussed at length at yesterday's Transportation and Finance auditing meetings before being presented to the full board for today. And again, I'd like to specifically note that at the Transportation Committee, we received an informative presentation on the Golden Gate Transit and Golden Gate Ferry ridership trends and where we are today by the Director of Planning, Ron Downing, and his organization. And at the Finance meeting, we received a presentation updating us, which was fascinating, about the district's workers' compensation and liability claims by Director of Managed Safety, Kelly Vitale. Thank you to their staffs for the presentations and the work on these complex topics. And I know that I appreciated the information personally, and other directors did as well. And just a reminder that to access these reports on your own, please use the Bridge website and the committee agenda packets. And with that, Chair Fredericks, would you please begin your committee's report to the board?
Thank you, President Parr, and I echo your thanks, especially to Planning Director Ron Downing, which made it really clear to us who rides the bus and what needs to happen before we can really see an uptick. The Transportation Committee met yesterday and has an item for the board action today. We are recommending the adoption of the findings of Title IV equity analysis for Golden Gate Transit commute bus service changes related to COVID-19 pandemic. Changes include service reductions on routes 27, 54, and 72, and the suspension of routes 2, 4, 8, 18, 24, 25, 38, 56X, 58, 76, 74, and 92, including all lettered variations of the impacted routes, with the understanding that the equity analysis concludes that changes do not have a disparate impact on minority passengers, nor do they impose a disproportionate burden on low-income passengers. And that is detailed and attached to the staff report, and I so move.
Thank you. I have a motion on the item. May I have a second?
I'll second. Bill.
Thank you. Are there board members with questions or comments on this item? And I'd also like to point out that the equity analysis was fascinating and well done by Ron Downing and his staff too. So are there board members with other comments or questions on the item? Hearing none, Madam Secretary, would you please do a roll call vote?
Thank you. We're voting on item 8A1, starting with Director Arnold. Absent. Director Conroy.
Aye.
Director Fredericks.
Yes.
Director Garbarino.
Yes.
Director Grosball.
Yes.
Director Hernandez.
Aye.
Aye. Director Hill.
Yes.
Director Maston.
Aye.
Director Melgar.
Aye.
Director Rabbit.
Aye.
Director Rodoni.
Aye.
Director Snyder.
Aye.
Director Stephanie.
Aye.
Second Vice President Cochran.
Yes.
First Vice President Theriault.
Yes.
And President Parr.
Aye.
Thank you, everyone. That motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. The item is adopted. Chair Fredericks, do you have anything further to report?
Nothing else at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Fredericks. Madam Secretary, please continue with the next item on the agenda.
Item 8B takes us to the report of the Finance Auditing Committee meeting of Thursday, July 22nd, and that summary of recommendations can be found on page 107 of your packet.
Thank you. Chair Rabbit, would you please begin your committee's report to the board?
Thank you, President Parr. The Finance Auditing Committee met yesterday and is recommending authorization of Board Agenda Item 8B1 to authorize the General Manager to file an application with the Metropolitan Transportation Commission for fiscal year 21-22, Transportation Development Act, State Transit Assistance, and Regional Measure 2 funds to support bus, ferry, and paratransit services in the amount of $22,708,972 in any related revisions as detailed in the staff report. And I so look forward to receiving these funds, which are higher than originally anticipated, that I so move.
Thank you.
I'll second the motion.
All right. We have eager seconds on that one. Are there any questions for the board from the board members on this item? Hearing none, Madam Secretary, would you please do a roll call vote?
Voting on item 8B1, starting with Director Arnold. Absent. Director Conroy.
Aye.
Aye. Director Fredericks. Director Fredericks?
Yes.
Thank you. Director Garbarino.
Yes.
Director Grosboll.
Yes.
Director Hernandez.
Aye.
Director Hill.
Yes.
Director Melgar.
Oh, yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Rabbit.
I think we all feel that.
Aye. Director Rodoni.
Aye.
Director Snyder. Director Snyder?
Aye.
Thank you. Director Stephanie.
Aye.
Second Vice President Cochran.
Yes.
First Vice President Theriault.
Yes.
And President Parr.
Aye.
You
Aye.
skipped
Thank you very much.
Maston.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was reading so fast. Director Maston.
Aye.
Thank you. Sorry about that. That motion passes unanimously with Director Maston as well. Thank you.
Thank you. That item is adopted. Chair Rabbit, do you have anything further to report?
Madam President, that concludes my report.
Thank you, Chair Rabbit. Madam Secretary, would you please continue with the next item on the agenda?
Thank you. We're going to move on to item 10 since there are no addresses to the board. Item number 10A is the discussion and possible action to terminate the suspension of board procedural rules and policies for COVID-19 related emergency actions. And Mr. Mulligan's brief staff report is on page 75. He's available to answer any questions.
Thank you. Are there questions for Mr. Mulligan on this? Hearing none, that concludes discussion on this item. It appears we should not be terminating the suspension of board procedural rules and policies at this time. May I have a motion to revisit this matter at our next regular board meeting on August 27th?
So moved, Patty.
Right. May I have a second?
Yeah.
I was waiting for you. Thank you. Madam Secretary, would you please conduct a roll call vote?
Thank you. This is item 10A, and we're starting with Director Arnold, who's absent, and Director Conroy.
Aye.
Thank you. Director Fredericks.
Yes.
Director Garbarino.
Yes.
Director Grosboll.
Yes.
Director Hernandez.
Aye.
Director Hill.
Yes.
Director Maston.
Aye.
Director Melgar.
Aye.
Director Rabbit.
Aye.
Director Rodoni.
Aye.
Director Snyder.
Aye.
Director Stephanie.
Aye.
Second Vice President Cochran.
Yes.
First Vice President Theriault.
Yes.
And President Parr.
Aye.
Thank you. That motion passes unanimously as well.
Thank you. The motion passes. Before we move on to item 11, unfinished business, which will be Attorney Monnolius' closed session report, I'd like to thank everyone again for being patient during the meeting. We'll be placing the public on hold and we'll reconnect the call after the closed session discussion. Mr. Monnolius, would you please take us into closed session?
Of course, President Parr, thanks so much. At this time, the board will go into closed session for a conference with legal counsel regarding existing litigation pursuant to Government Code 54956.9A for a discussion about the case called Hayes versus Golden Gate Bridge District.
We're back in open session.
All right. Thank you. Mr. Monnolius, would you please provide your closed session report?
Of course. Thanks, President Parr. The board met in closed session as indicated on the agenda for a conference of legal counsel regarding the Hayes case, and the board gave legal counsel appropriate guidance as to how to handle the matter.
Thank you. We have no new business to report. Item 13 is communications. Added communications was sent to directors yesterday. If you would like a copy of any of the communications, please contact the district secretary's office. We've reached the end of the agenda and there are no further items to be presented to the board. Thank you again to everyone who joined us for today's meeting. May I have a motion to adjourn?
So move, Verdoni.
All right, thank you. I'll take that as a motion and a second, unless there are objections, and I'll pause for just a second. We'll be adjourning today's meeting in memory of Elizabeth Monserrati, mother of bridge laborer Dennis Tan. Please join me in a moment of silence. This concludes the meeting of the Board of Directors. The time is 11:06. Thank you very much to all of you.